Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. Harper, I'm just going to take a quick shower and head to bed tonight. I'm exhausted. The words felt like lead weights on my tongue. The day had been one of those grueling, soul-crushing affairs where every minute felt like an hour. I was a project manager for a construction firm, and today, a subcontractor had messed up a concrete pour, setting us back a week and costing the company a small fortune. I'd spent 12 hours on my feet, shouting into phones, placating angry clients, and generally feeling the life drain out of me. Harper looked up from the book she was reading on the couch, her brow furrowed with a familiar concern that lately felt edged with something else. Distance. Maybe everything okay? Liam, you seem off. I forced a smile, dropping my keys and wallet into the ceramic bowl by the door. Just a long day, babe. Nothing a hot shower and 8 hours of sleep can't fix. She didn't look convinced, but she let it go, turning back to her book. All right, don't be too long. The silence that followed felt heavy. We used to fill these moments easily, with jokes or questions about each other's day. Now, an invisible wall seemed to have grown between us over the past few weeks. I chalked it up to stress mine from work. Hers from, well, I wasn't entirely sure. She'd been cagey lately, lost in thought. I trudged up the stairs, shedding my work clothes like a second skin. The shirt, stiff with sweat and dust, landed in the hamper with a dull thud. In the bathroom, I turned the shower knob until the water was steaming, the sound of it hitting the tiled floor a welcome roar that drowned out the buzzing in my head. The initial blast of hot water was a blissful shock, washing away the grime and tension. I leaned my forehead against the cool, wet tile, letting the steam fill my lungs. My muscles, tight and knotted from the day, began to slowly unclench. It was in that moment of surrender, as I stood there with my eyes closed, that the first strange sensation began. It wasn't a pain. Not exactly. It was more like a fizz, a carbonated tingling that started in the soles of my feet and began to creep upwards. I straightened up. Confused, it felt like the pins and needles of a limb falling asleep. But it was happening all over my body at once. The sensation intensified, moving up my legs, my torso, a warm, electric hum beneath my skin. I shook my head, thinking I was just lightheaded from the heat and exhaustion. But the feeling didn't stop. It grew stronger, almost ticklish, and I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. I gripped the wall for support, my heart starting to pound a nervous rhythm against my ribs. Then came the changes. It started with my height. I felt a bizarre, internal compression, as if gravity had suddenly doubled its hold on me. My perspective shifted downward by a few inches, a disorienting lurch that made the room feel instantly larger. I looked down, my eyes wide with a dawning horror. My legs seemed shorter, the dense, muscular build of my thighs softening, melting away like wax. The wiry hair on them seemed to retract into the skin, leaving them smooth and pale under the water. "What the?" I whispered, my voice sounding thin and reedy. The tingling sensation surged into my hips and waist. I felt a deep, unsettling shift in my bone structure. My waist seemed to cinch inward, a strange pressure followed by an ache, while my hips broadened, curving outward in a way that was fundamentally terrifyingly wrong. My solid, rectangular frame was reshaping itself into an hourglass. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the fog of exhaustion. I reached down, my hands tracing the impossible new contours of my own body. My skin felt different, softer, with a finer texture, devoid of the calluses and rough patches I was used to. The transformation moved upward, my shoulders, broad and strong from years of lifting and physical work, narrowed. I felt my deltoids and biceps shrink, the hard muscle giving way to a softer, more delicate tone. My arms looked slender, almost frail. In the dim, steamy light, a strange, aching sensitivity blossomed in my chest. I looked down just in time to see two small, tender mounds begin to swell from my pectoral muscles. I watched, frozen in a state of paralytic disbelief, as they grew fuller, rounder, forming into small, perfect breasts that were utterly alien to my body. I let out a choked gasp, a sound that was higher and more breathless than my own. The water cascaded over my face, and when I wiped it away, I felt that my jawline was softer, my brow less pronounced. I ran a trembling hand through my hair and my fingers tangled. My short, practical haircut was gone. In its place were long, wet strands of dark hair that fell past my shoulders, clinging to my new, smooth skin. The final, most profound change happened below my waist, the core of my male identity. The part of me that had defined my physical being since birth seemed to retract, to reshape, to reform into something entirely new. The sensation was so bizarre, so intimate and invasive, that I nearly fainted. When it was over, I felt a deep, hollowed-out emptiness where there should have been fullness. My breath came in ragged sobs. My heart was a wild drum against my ribs. I stumbled back, my new, smaller body feeling weak and uncoordinated. This couldn't be real. It had to be a dream, a hallucination brought on by stress. I pinched the soft flesh of my arm, hard. A sharp sting of pain flared, but the body remained the same. It was real, all of it. I frantically shut off the water, the sudden silence of the bathroom deafening. My whole body was trembling, a mix of cold, fear, and a deep cellular shock. I snatched a large bath towel from the rack and wrapped it around my new frame, hiding the evidence of the nightmare from my own eyes. The towel felt huge, engulfing my smaller form. "Harper," I tried to shout, but the name came out as a strangled, high-pitched cry. "Harper, help me!" I fumbled with the doorknob, my hand shaking too much to get a proper grip. Finally, it turned. I burst out of the bathroom and into the hallway, a mess of wet hair, pale skin, and pure terror. The towel clutched around me like a shield. Harper was just coming up the stairs, a book in her hand. She stopped dead, her eyes widening slightly as she took in the sight of me, the long dark hair plastered to my face, the slender shoulders, the distinct curves hinted at by the towel. I expected her to scream, to faint, to call 911. I expected shock, confusion, anything but what I saw. A slow, mysterious smile spread across her face. "Liam," she said, her voice unnervingly calm, "it seems we finally have something to talk about." Her smile was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. It wasn't a smile of amusement or joy. It was a smile of grim satisfaction, of vindication. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this exact moment, and it sent a fresh wave of ice-cold dread through my veins. "Harper, what's happening to me?" I pleaded, my voice cracking with desperation. It sounded so foreign, so feminine. "You have to help me. We have to call a doctor, an ambulance, something." She just stood there at the top of the stairs, blocking my path, her expression unreadable. She took a slow step forward, her eyes scanning my new form with a clinical detachment that made my skin crawl. "A doctor can't help you with this, Liam," she said, her tone level and devoid of sympathy. "This isn't a medical problem." "Then what is it?" I cried, clutching the towel tighter. I felt incredibly vulnerable, exposed. A dream? Am I going crazy? "Neither," she said, her voice hardening. "This is a consequence." My mind raced, trying to make sense of her words. A consequence for what I hadn't done anything. I'd been working myself to the bone, trying to build a future for us. The distance between us, her recent coldness, it all started to click into place in the most horrible way imaginable. "Harper, you think I did something," I stammered, the realization dawning on me. "You're angry with me." "Angry doesn't even begin to cover it," she snapped, her composure finally breaking. Her eyes flashed with a hurt and fury that stunned me. "I've been torturing myself for weeks. Liam, going over every conversation, every late night at the office, every text message you tried to hide. I gave you so many chances to tell me the truth. The truth about what I was completely lost. I haven't been hiding anything." She laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Oh, please, don't insult my intelligence. Don't stand there in that body and lie to my face again. I know all about her." "Her who are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," she shouted, her voice echoing in the hallway. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her thumb moving expertly across the screen. She thrust it in my face. "I'm talking about Scarlett." On the screen was a series of text messages, a conversation between my number and a contact saved as Scarlett. My blood ran cold as I read them. "Scarlett, thinking about you tonight. Can't wait to feel your strong hands on me again." "Mean to you too. Harper has no idea. She's so wrapped up in her own world." Scarlett, Bo, poor thing. When can I see you? I need you." "Mira soon. I'll make an excuse. Friday night, my place, after she falls asleep." The messages were dated over the past few weeks. They were flirtatious, clandestine, and damning. They painted a picture of a man of me carrying on a sordid affair right under my girlfriend's nose. And the last one, the one about meeting at our apartment, was a gut punch. "Harper, I didn't write these," I said, my voice barely a whisper. My mind was reeling. This was impossible. I'd never even heard of someone named Scarlett. "Stop lying," she sobbed, snatching the phone back. Tears were streaming down her face now, a mixture of rage and profound sadness. "I saw them, Liam. I checked your phone while you were in the shower last week. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. You've been so distant, so cold. And this is why." My head was spinning. The impossible transformation of my body, this phantom affair. None of it made sense. It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, but as the initial shock subsided, a sliver of rational thought cut through the panic. I looked at the messages again in my mind's eye, trying to find something, anything, that felt familiar. The phrasing, "Feel your strong hands on me again." It was so over the top, so dramatic, and the name, Scarlett, it sounded like something out of a cheap romance novel. It sounded like someone I knew would come up with. Someone with a twisted sense of humor. Someone who knew me well enough to mimic my texting style, but not perfectly. Someone who loved elaborate, stupid pranks. "Alex," I breathed. Harper stared at me, her tear-filled eyes narrowing. "What?" "It was Alex," I said, the certainty growing in my voice. "It has to be. Alex was my best friend, my partner in crime since college. He was loyal and good-hearted, but his idea of a joke could be catastrophically ill-conceived. He thought emotional chaos was the pinnacle of comedy. He knew my phone's passcode. I'd given it to him a dozen times to change the music in my car or look up directions." "The language," I explained, my thoughts moving faster now. "Strong Hands Alex has been teasing me about my lumberjack hands for years. And Scarlett, seriously. It's the name of his favorite character from some dumb video game he's obsessed with. He's been messing with me." Harper looked skeptical. "You expect me to believe your best friend faked an entire affair on your phone just for a laugh?" "Yes, that's exactly the kind of stupid, reckless thing he would do," I insisted. "He probably thought it would lead to a small argument, and he'd get to swoop in and say, 'Gotcha.' He has no idea how far this has gone. Call him right now. Ask him who Scarlett is." She hesitated, her face a mask of conflict. The seed of doubt I'd planted was clearly taking root, warring with the weeks of suspicion she'd been harboring. Her hand trembled as she unlocked her phone again, her thumb hovering over Alex's contact. Finally, she pressed it and put the phone on speaker. It rang once, twice, before Alex's cheerful, oblivious voice filled the air. "Harper, what's up, you and Liam having a wild Friday night?" Harper took a shaky breath. "Alex, I need you to tell me the truth about something. It's important." "Uh-oh, that sounds serious," he said, his tone still light. "Shoot." "Who?" Harper said, her voice dangerously quiet. "Is Scarlett?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, a long, damning silence, then a nervous chuckle. "Oh, that. Look, It was just a joke. Harper, he stammered, the humor draining from his voice as he likely sensed the gravity in hers. I was just messing with Liam. I thought you'd figure it out. It was supposed to be funny, you know, to see if you'd get jealous. I was going to tell you guys this weekend. Please tell me you're not actually mad about that. The color drained from Harper's face. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. The life, the anger, the certainty had all vanished from her eyes, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated horror. She looked from the phone, where Alex was still babbling nervously, up to me. Her gaze traveled over my long hair, my slender shoulders, my curved hips barely hidden by the towel. The reality of what she had done, the monumental, catastrophic miscalculation she had made, crashed down upon her. "Oh God," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "Liam, what have I done?" The dam of her composure broke completely. A choked sob escaped her lips, and she sank to her knees on the top step, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders shook with wrenching, guilt-ridden cries. It was a sound of such profound regret that, for a moment, it overshadowed my own terror. "Harper, talk to me," I urged, my own strange, high voice pleading. "What did you do? How did this happen?" She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears and mascara. I'm so sorry. Liam, I was so sure. I was so hurt. So angry. I wanted to punish you. Punish me by turning me into a woman." The words sounded insane even as I said them. How is that even possible? This is real, isn't it? I'm not dreaming. She shook her head, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "It's real. I did it." She took a deep, shuddering breath, as if steeling herself to confess a terrible secret. "My family, we're not like other people. The women in my family, we can do things that aren't supposed to be possible." I stared at her, my mind refusing to process the implication. "What are you talking about? Do things like what?" "Magic," she whispered, the word hanging in the air between us, heavy and unbelievable. "It's passed down from mother to daughter. We're witches, I guess you'd call it." I would have laughed if I weren't standing there in a body that served as irrefutable proof of her claim. Witches, magic. It was the stuff of fairy tales and fantasy novels, not something that happened in a suburban 2-story house on a Friday night. "You're a witch," I repeated numbly. She nodded miserably. "I found an old book of my grandmother's. It was filled with spells, curses. Most of them are harmless little things, for finding lost keys or making plants grow, but some are older, more powerful. There was one, a lesson in humility. It was called a spell to make an unfaithful man walk in a woman's shoes, to feel the vulnerability he exploits in others." My blood ran cold. "You put a curse on me." "I thought you deserved it," she cried, her voice cracking. I was so blinded by jealousy and rage. I didn't think. I just wanted you to hurt the way I was hurting. I read the words. I used a picture of you, and it worked. The sheer, cosmic injustice of it all was overwhelming. I had been transformed, my entire physical being rewritten, because of a stupid prank and a centuries-old spell book. "Change me back," I said, my voice low and trembling with a fury that was beginning to eclipse my fear. "Change me back, right now." Her face fell, a new layer of panic entering her eyes. "I can't." "What do you mean, you can't?" I shouted, taking a step forward. "You did this undo it." "The spell, it has rules," she stammered, scrambling for an explanation. "It's not like flipping a switch. It's a lesson. It's designed to last. The book says the effects must hold for a minimum of 7 days to ensure the lesson is learned. It can't be reversed before then. 7 days, a week, 168 hours. The numbers spun in my head, each one a nail in the coffin of my identity. I was trapped in this soft, delicate, utterly foreign body for a week. The thought was so horrifying, so suffocating, that my legs gave out. I collapsed against the wall, sliding down to the floor, the towel pooling around my new hips. I was a man who was now, for all intents and purposes, a woman for a whole week. No, I whispered, shaking my head in denial. No, 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 there has to be a way. Call your mom, your grandmother, anyone. Harper was already fumbling for her phone again, her hands shaking violently. I'll call my mom. She knows more about this stuff than I do. Maybe there's a loophole, a countercurse. She dialed, her face pale with anxiety. I listened as the phone rang, each unanswered tone stretching my nerves tighter. It went to voicemail. She's not picking up, Harper said, her voice strained. She's probably asleep. It's late. She tried again and again, each time. The call went unanswered. The last sliver of hope I was clinging to began to fray. Defeated. Harper let the phone drop to her lap. The reality of our situation settled over us like a shroud. I was stuck like this, and she was the one who had trapped me. The silence in the hallway was thick with my despair and her guilt. Liam, I am so sorry, she whispered, her voice thick with unshed tears. I will fix this. I promise. We have to get through tonight. Get through tonight. The idea seemed impossible. How could I sleep, eat, or even breathe in this body? Every sensation was alien. The feel of my long hair on my neck, the unfamiliar weight on my chest, the sheer wrongness of my own anatomy. Harper slowly got to her feet and extended a hand to me. I ignored it, pushing myself up with a grace I didn't recognize I possessed. My movements felt different, lighter, more fluid. It was unnerving. You can't sleep in a wet towel, she said softly, as if speaking to a frightened animal. Come on, I'll find you something to wear. Numbly, I followed her into our bedroom. The room, my sanctuary, now felt like a stranger's territory. She opened her dresser drawer, the one filled with soft fabrics and lace, and my stomach churned. She pulled out a simple, dark blue nightgown made of a smooth, silky material. It had thin spaghetti straps and fell to about mid-thigh. She held it out to me, her eyes pleading for me to take it. The thought of putting on her clothes, of wearing something so explicitly feminine, was a profound humiliation. It was the final surrender, the ultimate acceptance of my new reality, even if it was temporary. But the towel was cold and damp, and the idea of sleeping naked in this new body was somehow even more terrifying. With a shaking hand, I took the nightgown. The fabric felt cool and impossibly soft against my fingertips. I'll give you some privacy, Harper said, backing out of the room and closing the door softly behind her. Left alone, I stood in the middle of the room for a long moment, the silken garment dangling from my hand. Then, with a deep, shuddering sigh of resignation, I let the towel drop to the floor. I avoided looking in the full-length mirror on the closet door, my gaze fixed on the floor. I couldn't bear to see the stranger staring back at me. I slipped the nightgown over my head. The material cascaded down my body, clinging in ways my own clothes never had. It hugged the curve of my waist and the swell of my hips. The thin fabric whispered against my skin, a constant, tactile reminder of my altered form. The delicate straps felt like spiderwebs on my narrowed shoulders. When I moved, I could feel the soft, unfamiliar weight of my small breasts jostling slightly, the sensation sending a jolt of pure cognitive dissonance through me. I crawled into bed, the sheets feeling different against my smooth, hairless legs. I lay on my back, stiff as a board, acutely aware of every new detail. The long hair fanned out on the pillow behind me, the slight pressure of the nightgown against my chest, the very shape of my body under the blankets. This wasn't a dream. This was my prison, and I had 7 days left on my sentence. Sleep, I knew, would not come easily. I must have drifted off at some point, because the next thing I knew, pale morning light was filtering through the blinds, painting stripes across the bedroom. For a blissful, fleeting second, I forgot. I was just Liam, waking up on a Saturday. I stretched. A familiar morning ritual. But the movement felt all wrong. My limbs were shorter, lighter. My hand brushed against my chest and met a soft mound instead of a hard pectoral. Reality came crashing back in a tidal wave of memory and horror. I bolted upright in bed, the silk nightgown sliding against my skin. My heart hammered against my ribs. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. I looked down at myself, at the slender arms, the curve of my waist visible even under the loose fabric, the shape of my legs beneath the sheets. A wave of nausea rolled through me. Hesitantly, I swung my legs over the side of the bed. My feet, now smaller and more arched, touched the cool wood of the floor. I stood up, feeling unsteady, my center of gravity completely different. Every instinct screamed at me not to do it, but I knew I had to. I had to see. I walked to the full-length mirror, my movements tentative, almost fearful. I stopped in front of it and forced myself to look up. The person staring back at me was a complete stranger. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, with large, dark eyes that were wide with a familiar terror, my terror. Her face was heart-shaped, with high cheekbones and a softer jaw than I was used to. Her lips were fuller, a cascade of dark, wavy hair tumbled around her shoulders. Her body was slim but curved, with a defined waist, gently flaring hips, and those small, perfectly shaped breasts. She was pretty. The objective observation was so jarring, so disconnected from my internal state of panic, that it made me feel even more alienated from the reflection. "This isn't me," I whispered, and the girl in the mirror whispered it back, her voice a soft, melodic echo of my own. I reached out a trembling hand and pressed my fingertips to the cold glass. The reflection did the same. This was my body now. The bedroom door creaked open. Harper stood there, looking like she hadn't slept at all. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy, her face etched with guilt. She was holding 2 mugs of coffee. "I thought you might be awake," she said quietly. I couldn't sleep." She walked over and handed me a mug. My fingers wrapped around the warm ceramic, and the simple, normal act felt bizarrely comforting. We stood there in silence for a moment, both of us staring at the reflection in the mirror. "I still can't believe it," I said, my voice hoarse. I look at her, and I know it's me, but my brain it refuses to accept it. "I'm so sorry, Liam," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise, I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you." She took a sip of her coffee, her gaze still fixed on my reflection. "My mom called back this morning, early. I told her everything." My head snapped towards her, a spark of hope igniting in my chest. "And can she fix it? Is there a way to reverse it sooner?" Harper's expression was a mixture of relief and trepidation. "Yes, there is, but it's complicated. It requires a specific set of ingredients, some of which are hard to find, and the ritual has to be performed at sunset. She's going to gather what she can, and she's driving down here. She should arrive late this afternoon." Sunset. I had to get through an entire day like this. The relief was immense, but it was tempered by the immediate challenge of the next 8 or 9 hours. "So, tonight?" I asked, needing to hear it again. "It can be over tonight." "Yes," she confirmed, a small, genuine smile finally touching her lips. "Tonight. You'll be you again." The relief was so profound it almost made my knees buckle. It wasn't a week. It was a day. I could survive a day. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay, I can do this." "But until then," Harper said, gesturing vaguely at my body, "we have some practical problems. You can't exactly walk around in my nightgown, and you don't have any, you know." I knew exactly what she meant. Clothes, underwear, the basic necessities of getting dressed, none of which I owned in this new configuration. The thought filled me with a fresh wave of dread and profound awkwardness. "I'm not wearing your clothes, Harper," I said firmly. "You don't have a choice, Liam," she replied gently. "It's just for one day. I'll help you. We'll make it as painless as possible." She led me to her closet and drawers, and what followed was one of the most surreal and humiliating experiences of my life. She started with underwear. She handed me a simple, comfortable-looking pair of black cotton panties and a matching soft-cup bra. "Here," she said, trying to be matter-of-fact. "Just start with these." My hands trembled as I took them. The panties felt like nothing, a wisp of fabric. Putting them on felt profoundly wrong, a violation of my own identity. Then came the bra. I fumbled with it, trying to figure out how the straps and clasps worked. I'd seen Harper do it 1,000,000 times, but it was another thing entirely to be doing it myself, on my own chest. After a few pathetic attempts, I let out a frustrated sigh. Harper stepped forward. "Here, let me," she said softly. "Turn around." I did as she said, my cheeks burning with shame. Her cool fingers brushed against my back as she expertly fastened the clasp. The feeling of the straps settling onto my shoulders and the fabric enclosing my breasts was a new kind of prison. It wasn't painful, but it was a constant, undeniable declaration that my body was not my own. For clothes, she chose a simple pair of dark wash skinny jeans and a loose, cream-colored sweater. The jeans were a struggle. I was used to baggy work pants and straight-leg denim. The sensation of tight fabric clinging to my thighs and hips was incredibly strange. But when I looked in the mirror, I had to admit, they fit. The outfit looked normal. It looked like something any young woman would wear on a Saturday. The final hurdle was my face. My 5 o'clock shadow was gone, replaced by smooth skin. But my expression was a mess of panic and exhaustion. "Let me just tidy you up a little," Harper said, guiding me to the vanity. "Just a little bit, so you feel more put together." She was so gentle, so full of remorse, that I couldn't bring myself to say no. I sat there as she brushed my long, tangled hair until it fell in soft waves around my shoulders. The feeling of the bristles on my scalp was surprisingly pleasant. Then she opened her makeup bag. My first instinct was to protest, but she held up a hand. "Just a little concealer for under your eyes," she murmured, dabbing it on with a soft sponge. "You look as tired as I feel." Her touch was light, professional. She applied a bit of tinted moisturizer, a brush of blush on my cheeks to give my pale face some color. Each step was a small, intimate act that felt both comforting and deeply unsettling. "Close your eyes," she whispered. I felt the soft tickle of a mascara wand against my eyelashes. "Okay, open." My eyes in the mirror looked bigger, darker, the lashes longer. The changes were subtle, but they made the face in the mirror look less like a terrified man in a woman's body and more like a woman. She picked up a tube of tinted lip balm. "Just a little color," she said. She applied it directly to my lips, her thumb bracing my chin. For a second, our eyes met in the mirror. Her expression was complicated, guilty, sad, but also something else, a flicker of fascination. Maybe. The moment was charged with a strange, awkward intimacy. My face flushed, and she pulled back quickly, as if she'd felt it too. I stood up, fully dressed, hair brushed, a light touch of makeup on my face. I looked in the mirror again. The stranger was still there, but she no longer looked like she'd just survived a car crash. She looked normal. It was the most abnormal feeling in the world. "There," Harper said softly. "See, you can get through today." I looked at my reflection, at this woman I was pretending to be, and for the first time, a sliver of something other than fear crept in. It was a bizarre, academic curiosity. What did it feel like to move through the world like this, to be seen this way? I still hated it. I still wanted my own body back more than anything. But as Harper said, it was just for one day. And maybe, just maybe, I could survive it. The day was a long, strange ordeal. We stayed inside. A self-imposed quarantine. Every normal activity was filtered through the bizarre lens of my new body. Making coffee felt different with smaller hands. Sitting on the couch felt different with wider hips. Even the sound of my own footsteps on the floor was lighter, less familiar. Harper was a constant, attentive presence, her guilt manifesting as an almost suffocating level of care. She made me lunch. She put on my favorite movie. She kept up a steady stream of conversation, all of it an attempt to distract me from the existential crisis I was living in. I spent most of the day hyper-aware of myself. I'd catch my reflection in the dark screen of the TV or the glass of a picture frame and feel a fresh jolt of disorientation every time. I was a ghost in my own home, inhabiting a body that didn't belong to me. Finally, as the afternoon light began to fade, casting long shadows across the living room, Harper's mother arrived. She was a kind-faced woman with a practical air about her, and she didn't seem the least bit surprised to find her daughter's boyfriend had become a woman. She gave me a sympathetic look, patted my arm, and got straight to work, unpacking a leather bag filled with herbs, colored candles, and a small, leather-bound book. "Don't you worry, dear," she said to me, her voice calm and reassuring. "We'll have you right as rain in no time. Harper, you know what to do." The salt circle. They worked together, Harper drawing a large circle on the living room floor with coarse salt while her mother lit candles and ground herbs with a mortar and pestle, the fragrant scent filling the air. I was instructed to sit in the center of the circle. As the last rays of sun disappeared below the horizon, Harper's mother began to chant in a language I didn't recognize. The words were ancient, rhythmic, and powerful. Harper joined in, her voice harmonizing with her mother's. I closed my eyes, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear, a warm, tingling sensation, identical to the one I'd felt in the shower, began to spread through my body, but this time, instead of panic, I felt a profound sense of relief. It was happening in reverse. I felt a strange sense of expansion, as if my bones were stretching back to their original size. My hips narrowed, my waist thickened, the soft flesh on my chest receded, the aching sensitivity fading away until my pecs were flat and firm once more. My shoulders broadened, my muscles hardening and regaining their mass. I felt my hair shorten, retracting from my shoulders to the familiar short crop I'd always had. The final, internal shift was as profound as the first, a welcome and deeply affirming return to my natural state. I took a deep, shuddering breath, and the air filled my lungs in a familiar way. I opened my eyes. I looked down at my hands, large, calloused, and unequivocally mine. I felt the rough stubble on my jaw, ran a hand through my short hair. I was me. I was Liam again. The wave of relief was so powerful it was like a physical blow. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I was home. Harper rushed forward as her mother quietly began to clean up the salt and candles. Giving us our space, she threw her arms around my neck, burying her face in my chest. "I'm so sorry," she choked out for what felt like the 100th time. "I'm so sorry, Liam." I held her tight, the feeling of my own strength, my own body, a comfort beyond words. The anger I'd felt was gone, washed away by the sheer, overwhelming joy of being myself again. "It's okay," I said, my voice deep and rumbling in my chest, the sound like music to my ears. "It's over. We're okay." We stood there for a long time, just holding each other. I forgave her. I knew she'd acted out of hurt and a monumental magic-fueled misunderstanding. The person I couldn't forgive so easily was the one who had started it all. "I'm still going to kill Alex, though," I grumbled into her hair, only half joking. "When I get my hands on him." Harper pulled back, a strange, mischievous glint in her eyes. It was the first time I'd seen her look truly relaxed all day. "Don't worry about Alex," she said, a sly smile playing on her lips. "I've already taken care of him. In fact, I think you'll enjoy the surprise." Before I could ask what she meant, the doorbell rang. Harper's smile widened, right on time. She went to the door and opened it. Standing on our porch, looking utterly bewildered and terrified, was me. Or rather, the female version of me I had just spent the day as. The same heart-shaped face, the same long dark hair, the same slim curved body, now dressed in a ridiculously ill-fitting man's t-shirt and jeans that were clearly Alex's. It was Alex, He, or rather. She stared at me, then at Harper, her new large, dark eyes wide with panic. What? What did you do to me? Alex shrieked, her voice a high-pitched, feminine wail of distress. She tugged at the hem of the t-shirt, which hung on her like a tent. Why do I look like that? She pointed a trembling, slender finger at me, or rather, at the memory of the body she now inhabited. I was speechless. I just stared, my brain trying to reconcile the sight of my best friend in the body that had been my prison just minutes before. Harper stepped forward, looking immensely pleased with herself. Consider it a lesson, Alex, a lesson about an individual's right to privacy and the consequences of incredibly stupid jokes. But I can't stay like this, Alex cried, her voice cracking. I have a date tomorrow. I have work on Monday. Change me back. Oh, I will, Harper said sweetly. The spell I used on you is much simpler. It only lasts for 24 hours. A full day to walk in someone else's shoes, or in this case, a very specific woman's shoes. Alex opened her mouth to argue, to protest, to explain her side of things, but Harper held up a hand. Oh, and one more thing. To ensure you don't run around telling everyone my little family secret, I added a small addendum to the spell. For the next 24 hours, if you try to tell anyone what happened, the only words that will come out of your mouth are, "My name is Scarlett and I'm a very pretty girl." Alex's face went white with horror. She opened her mouth, a look of fierce defiance on her face, and stammered, My name is Essa Scarlett, and I'm a very pretty girl." A strangled squeak of pure despair escaped her lips. She looked down at her new chest, at her hands, at her feet, and then back at me. Her expression was one of absolute, pleading misery. And I started to laugh. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a deep, rolling, gut-busting laugh. The sheer, perfect, poetic justice of it all was too much. The stress and terror of the past 24 hours erupted out of me in a wave of hysterical mirth. Alex, the master of pranks, had become the butt of the ultimate joke. It was, I had to admit, a punishment that fit the crime perfectly. He just stood there on my doorstep, a beautiful, tragic, and utterly comical monument to his own foolishness. After I finally managed to stop laughing and Alex or Scarlett, as I couldn't resist calling her, had stumbled off into the night, vowing a silent, furious revenge, Harper's mother gave us both a knowing look, hugged us goodbye, and left us alone. The living room was quiet again. The only evidence of the evening's magical activities, the faint, lingering scent of burnt sage and lavender. We sank onto the couch, the familiar cushions a welcome comfort. I leaned back, closing my eyes, just reveling in the simple, profound reality of being in my own skin. My skin. It was a concept I'd never truly appreciated until I'd been forced out of it. Harper curled up beside me, resting her head on my shoulder. Her presence was a comfort, but my mind was buzzing with a million questions. Our relationship, which I had thought was so normal, so straightforward, had just revealed a hidden dimension that was both terrifying and utterly fascinating. So I said, breaking the silence, "A witch." I felt her nod against my shoulder. "A witch?" she confirmed softly. "And your mom is a witch, and her mom was a witch. As far back as anyone can remember," she said. "It only passes to the women in the family. My dad knows." "Of course. It's hard to hide it when your wife accidentally turns the mailman into a garden gnome for a few hours because he trampled her prize-winning roses." I let out a low whistle. "You're kidding." "I wish I were. He was a very grumpy gnome." I sat with that for a moment. The sheer domestic absurdity of it. This wasn't some dark, gothic secret. To her, it was just family. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked. "It wasn't an accusation, just a genuine question." "How do you bring that up?" she replied, her voice small. "Hey, honey, pass the salt. Oh, and by the way, I can curse you into another species if you make me mad. It's not exactly first date material. I was scared you'd think I was crazy, that you'd leave." "I probably would have thought you were crazy," I admitted honestly. At least, until last night. I opened my eyes and looked at her. I'm not going anywhere. A real relieved smile spread across her face. Good. We sat in comfortable silence for another minute before my curiosity got the better of me again. What else can you do, I mean, besides that? I gestured vaguely, not needing to specify the body-altering, gender-swapping curse. She chuckled. Mostly small things. I can usually find a great parking spot. I can make a dying houseplant perk up. I can encourage a pot not to boil over when I'm distracted. My mom is much more powerful. My grandmother was a force of nature. It takes years of practice to control it, to do the bigger stuff properly, as you saw. When I let my emotions get the best of me, things can get out of hand. You can say that again, I muttered, but there was no heat in it. In a strange way, the whole horrifying experience had ripped down that invisible wall that had been growing between us. All the secrets were out in the open now. The most unbelievable one of all laid bare on the living room floor in a circle of salt. I don't know what I've gotten myself into, I said, shaking my head with a faint smile. My girlfriend is a witch, and my best friend is currently a beautiful woman named Scarlett who is probably having a complete meltdown in his apartment. Just then, a loud shriek echoed from down the street, followed by what sounded suspiciously like someone tripping in a pair of shoes they weren't used to and then cursing, only for the curse to be replaced by a frustrated cry of, "I'm a very pretty girl." I couldn't help but chuckle. Harper snuggled closer, her hand finding mine. You've gotten yourself into a relationship with a lot more magic in it than you planned. I looked at her, at the woman I loved, who was so much more complex and powerful than I had ever imagined. The future suddenly felt vast and unpredictable, filled with possibilities I couldn't even begin to guess at. It was a little scary, sure, but as I intertwined my fingers with hers, feeling the familiar rightness of it all, I realized it was also incredibly exciting. Well, I said, squeezing her hand, I guess I'd better get used to a little more magic in my life. Her smile was mysterious, wonderful, and just a little bit wicked, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were truly on the same page, ready to face whatever strange new chapter was about to begin.